talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of This Week in Marketing. This is your host, Bill Wynn with AMA San Diego. Joining me in the studio once again is my colleague, Sam Wheeler. Good morning, Sam.
Morning.
Today, our show topic is Introverts are Marketers Too, and I will introduce our guest in a moment. Before I do that, I would like to, as I normally do, highlight for our listeners upcoming events with AMA San Diego, and we've got two things on the calendar that I want to highlight. First is a really cool mixer coming up May 18th. So find that on the website sdama.org. Again, April 18th, a cool mixer in the UTC area that we're just getting just rolling out now. And then obviously the second big thing is our 2018 Art of Marketing Conference, which is May 11th in the Mission Valley area. Full day of sessions and breakouts, keynotes and breakouts and networking in Mission Valley. Again, that's May 11th. So back to our subject of the day. Introverts are marketers too. Joining me remotely is Beth Bulow. Beth, are you there?
How are you?
Hey, great, Beth. Thanks for joining us today. So Beth is a certified coach, speaker, and author of The Introverted Entrepreneur. She is an expert in the subject of introverts in business. Beth and I actually met. We had the good fortune, or I had the good fortune, to be seated next to her at the AMA Leadership Summit in Chicago in 2016. And she delivered a keynote that day, and I really enjoyed sitting next to her and kind of learning more about her focus. So good morning, Beth, once again. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah, and so as I said, our topic here is Introverts are Marketers Too. And so maybe you can start out by kind of introducing yourself a little bit, tell our audience, why the focus on introversion and kind of how we define that, those types of things, if you would, please.
Sure. Well, my name is Beth, and I'm an introvert. I discovered I was an introvert, I think, back in graduate school, and I was in graduate school for arts administration. So my path has, like many entrepreneurs, has been a little bit unconventional. Started out as a musician, classical music trained in clarinet, and then transitioned to arts administration, and have always had a long-standing interest in psychology and particularly personality types. And it was through about 12 years of nonprofit work, doing everything ranging from development, fundraising, marketing, web work, and grant making, that I finally dumped me at the door of coaching. And it was, we as marketers, we know that identifying your target market is extremely important, right? Because we don't want to be just, it helps us to focus our energy and our resources. And I really struggled with it in the beginning of my coaching business. I couldn't quite figure out who was I meant to coach. And after forcing it for a while and going through a period I called my niche du jour, I finally decided, I'm just going to be open. I'm just going to see who shows up and who I resonate with and what resonates with me. And I truly had one of those, aha light bulb moments back in the spring of 2010, almost 8 years ago right now, where I realized I was attracting introverts. And being an introvert myself, I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. I hold a certain kind of space for introverts. And I recognize that introverts are often, at least they were, and I think to some degree they still are, kind of marginalized a bit, put on the edges of things. And my pattern has always been to be attracted to the underdog. To that person who is perhaps not being seen and heard, but has lots of possibilities and lots of potential. And I saw that introverts, myself included, had a lot of strengths that were perhaps not recognized as strengths. So one of my early messages, and I still stand by it, is that I want to create introvert pride of ownership, to be able to say I'm an introvert and I am proud of it, and to help shift the perceptions that are held by others, but also by introverts themselves.
Awesome. Thank you for that background. How do we define introversion? What does introversion mean? I mean, if somebody's an introvert, how extreme is that, right? Or is there kind of a sliding scale? Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, definitely a sliding scale. We all exist on a spectrum, and introversion and extroversion are, paired together as, I don't like to think of them as personality types, and that's often how they're framed. I think of them more as energetic types, and that's because I like to go back to the 1920s when the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung coined these phrases and brought them more into the mainstream, and he defined them as one's orientation to the world and where one gains and drains their energy. So introverts will gain energy through solitude and lower stimulation environments, and extroverts will gain energy through social interaction and higher stimulation environments. And we all exist on a spectrum because as human beings, we're social creatures. So we all need, introvert and extrovert alike, that social interaction and stimulation. It's just that introverts hit their threshold much faster than extroverts do. I think of like going to the county fair and think of all the lights and the activity and the people and the noise. I can take maybe an hour or two before I'm like, I'm full, I'm satisfied, I'm ready to go. Whereas an extrovert can stay all day and then be ready to go out afterwards. The spectrum part comes in where just because an extrovert needs and enjoys and is energized by social stimulation does not mean that they don't appreciate downtime, quiet, and alone time. Just as the introvert can appreciate, socializing with friends or going to a party. It's just figuring out the ratio of what keeps you at your optimal energetic level. And for introverts, that is a higher balance of solitude and low stimulation. And for extroverts, it's a higher balance of social interaction.
Yeah. So when you talked about this in Chicago, it was kind of a revelation to me, right? Because I count myself, among the introverts, really. And so I always kind of wondered why it was that like large groups were kind of exhausting to me, right? Versus one-on-one conversations being a lot more something I could sustain a lot longer. And, I joke with my wife because she is the consummate extrovert, right? And I think between us, we have a socializing quotient of 1.0, and she's 0.95 of that, right? So, if we go to a party, it's all I can do to drag her out of there, and I'm done like in the first half hour, right? And so your explanation really helps explain why that is, right? That for the introvert, those situations are not energizing but draining, whereas it's the opposite for the extrovert or the person who is, the people who are at the opposite ends of that scale.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of misperception comes in, or misconception, that introverts don't like being social or going to the party. And the truth is we can enjoy it if we've had enough downtime to build up the energy so that we can expend it during that social time. So there's a difference between I don't like people and I don't like going to social events and parties. And I can go to them and I can be just fine, and people would think I was an extrovert, but it really takes all of my energy. It's like, the car that when it drives, it's running low on fuel, right? And it's got to stop and refuel. And that's how introverts are. We are expending fuel during that party. And we absolutely have to stop at some point and fill up the tank again so that we can move again later on.
Yeah, and so that certainly resonates with me, and I imagine that it resonates with a lot of people who will listen to this broadcast either now or on demand later. Your website is theintrovertentrepreneur.com, right? And so people can learn more about you there. Obviously, your book is featured prominently there. Can you tell our audience kind of what your book is about, what it covers?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it is captured in the subtitle, which is Amplify Your Strengths and Create Success on Your Own Terms. The book is basically looking at various aspects of entrepreneurship through that introvert lens and offering introvert-friendly strategies for navigating the things that introverts often find most challenging. And those are usually, as you might guess, the outward kind of people-oriented aspects of being an entrepreneur, like marketing, selling, networking, collaboration, and even expansion. And so we take a look at each of those and talk about, why is it perhaps challenging for an introvert? What are some of the strengths that introverts have that can contribute positively to moving through any barriers? And then how can you develop some strategies that are aligned with your energy? So one thing the book is about saying, well, stop being an introvert, you need to be more extroverted. That would never be my message. It's more, how can, again, amplify your strengths? How can you take what is already inherently good in what the strengths that you have and good in what you do, and turn up the volume on those so that it's supporting the business that you want to create.
Okay, and so we're going to stop there for a moment and take a break. Mm-hmm. When we come back, I'm going to ask you more about kind of what some of these strengths might be, and how to amplify those, as you mentioned, how to take advantage of those. Again, we're talking with Beth Bulow here, certified coach, speaker, and author of The Introverted Entrepreneur, about Introverts Are Marketers Too. We'll be right back after the break.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on VinVillage Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back. This is your host, Bill Wynn with AMA San Diego. We are on with Beth Bulow, author of The Introvert Entrepreneur and certified coach and speaker, talking about introverts are marketers too. Beth, you're there with me?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So when we left off before the break, we were just starting to talk about kind of what special or unique strengths introverts might bring to the table. And how to amplify those. Can you elaborate on that for me? Like what kind of strengths are you talking about there?
These are things that introverts, like most people, we have a strength and we take it for granted. So they might not notice it. And because they're a little bit quieter maybe and not as always prized, but listening is a huge strength that introverts have. We are often told that we're, excellent listeners, generally because we like to listen more than we want to talk. And that comes from another strength, which is a willingness and a propensity for shining the light on others. A friend and I, another introvert friend and I often will call each other and it'll be, so what are you up to? Oh, not much. What about you? Talk about you. No, you talk about you. We don't want to talk about ourselves, which can, have the flip side of not being a strength. But in other ways, especially when it comes to marketing and sales, it is a strength because we're turning the tables and making sure that the other person is really seen and heard and that we're really listening. We tend to have really good observation skills, because perhaps that we are hanging back on the edges a little bit, watching a scene or a meeting or a conversation unfold, processing it internally and perhaps noticing things that might go unseen by those that are more are participating by talking. We're participating by observation. And curiosity is another one that is either natural or cultivated in many introverts. We tend to love to ask questions and have a thirst for information. We tend to be really good researchers and like to gather all of our facts and data in doing something. And we also, I think it's akin to that or related to it, is that we like to go for depth over breadth. So we're very interested in attaining mastery in a particular area. And, there are probably different theories on why that might be. And one of mine is simply that it gives us an identity. It gives us kind of a foothold in the world, that target niche, if you will, that allows us to kind of carve out our space naturally in an otherwise noisy space.
Okay, that's awesome. Those are things I don't think I would have thought of, but again, some of them kind of resonate. So the businesses or the entrepreneurs that you work with in your coaching practice, what sort of generalities can we draw about these folks? Like what kind of, when they come to you, well, first of all, who are they, right? What types of businesses do you find yourself working with?
Mostly service-based businesses. And often somebody is coming to me, and I think introverts experience this in the workplace a lot, because they're frustrated with the work that they're doing. They feel like their contributions aren't necessarily being heard or appreciated, that there's not really a place for their voice in a larger organization. And they have a pretty strong independent streak. I'm pretty sure it was probably an introvert that said, if you want it done right, do it yourself. And often they find themselves constrained in a more traditional work environment. So my typical client is coming from that kind of traditional environment and is looking to break out and, kind of pave their own way, create success on their own terms, and create something that is more aligned with who they are naturally. So they feel like they're not having to conform to someone else's vision or to someone else's idea or definition of success.
And are these just to be clear, are these, business owners, or do you find yourself also working with executives or managers in enterprises who, are confronting challenges?
Yes. I work with both. Okay. Generally, it's a small business owner, a solopreneur, but then leaders within organizations that are often the thing that they're coming for is, I've been told that I need to speak up more. I really want to advance within the organization, but I'm having trouble being seen and heard and promoting myself. So it very much centers around leadership, issues of leadership and building their own trust in themselves and being able to be seen and heard for who they are without feeling like they're sacrificing themselves.
Yeah, and I think that both of those scenarios, both the solopreneur and the enterprise manager or leader, are both relevant to our audience here at AMA San Diego, because we've in all the events I go to and the people I meet in the organization, I know that both of those groups are equally represented, right? We've got a lot of small business owners who are trying to figure out how to grow their businesses. A lot of those businesses are marketing oriented, right? And they are, they're either marketing consultants or they're graphic designers or they're web developers, and so they're trying to figure out kind of given this predominant introversion characteristic, how to advance their business, or it's marketers at the enterprise level who, kind of meet that definition you just described. So, yeah. I think that, in the marketing world, just like any other, this is an issue worth kind of dealing with. Mm-hmm. And then, so talk to me when these folks. Let's focus on the solopreneurs for a moment. So when these folks come to you, kind of what kind of concerns, what kind of challenges do they describe, and how do you work with them? What does your process look like?
Usually when they begin coaching, it's kind of like when you go to the doctor, the symptoms that are presented often aren't what directly points you to the problem, or, the surface is not indicative of what's going on underneath. And so the surface presenting issue is, I'm having trouble marketing, or I'm having trouble with networking and finding my way there. And if you dig down another couple of levels, what it really comes down to is vulnerability and an aversion to being seen and heard out there in the big wide world where anything could happen. And especially with social media and, comments and chats and all these things where people can kind of hide behind anonymity, they often feel a huge sense and awareness of their vulnerability. And they feel a tug of war between see me, don't see me, look at me, but don't look at me. And that's when, as we work together, we start to emphasize, what's really most important about, to get clear on. And one of them is, why are you in business? Who are you serving and why are you serving them? And what's the value of your offering? Because once you become clear on all of those things, for most of my clients, that helps them take the focus off of themselves and their own vulnerability, and it puts it more onto their product or their service. Because we can become so internalized and easily entwined with our business. And that means that we are tending to absorb more of people's responses and take them personally. So being able to really differentiate between ourselves and our business, like I am my business, but I am not my business, helps to create a healthier balance and helps to put that vulnerability in check. And another thing, just quickly, is that they often are suffering from analysis paralysis. They're overthinking their strategies or their offerings, or feeling like if I just do a little bit more research. And sometimes this can, actually be a form of procrastination, putting off the inevitable see me, don't see me tug of war. So I usually work with clients to help them find evidence from their past experiences that they can handle it, that they've been able to move forward even after doing their homework or not doing their homework, and to build trust within themselves that they have more capacity than they think. To build up that evidence that says, hey, you can do this, and to move through any fears, again, tied to vulnerability, that they're going to be judged harshly. Our minds usually go immediately to, I'm going to be criticized, or people are going to rip me apart. And we forget that, by putting myself out there, I'm also offering up the opportunity for people to say, hey, I really like what you're doing, or this is really making a difference for me. And so helping them to remember that there's a whole range of feedback that they're inviting by putting themselves out there, and to be able to, start that feedback loop so that they can kind of move through and kind of get the worst out of the way so that they can be open to whatever transformation or problem solving that they're able to offer for people. So we're often working on, creating that feedback loop, whether it's through a minimum viable product or smaller experiments that help them to, get through that inertia that can happen when they're overanalyzing something, and say, just do a small thing so that we can just start to get information and start that feedback.
So that is a terrific insight, that the feedback loop isn't only negative, and that by putting yourself out there, you create the opportunity to collect some positive feedback, right? But you can't do that if you don't kind of open the door.
Exactly. I think there's a Michael Jordan. It's Wayne Gretzky. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep.
So if you don't put it out there, you'll never find out. And sure, you won't get, the negative, but you also won't get the positive, and you won't get the transformation that you probably had in mind when you went into business in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take another break right here. Now, when we come back from the break, I'm going to ask you to elaborate on kind of what experiences introverts have with kind of electronic media, right? If those have the same risks to them that like in-person things do. And then speaking of in-person, how introverts can more effectively network. So we'll talk about those two things when we come back from the break.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. Securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. Securingourecity.org.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Kenja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kenja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KenjaDixon.com.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, Just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
Welcome back. This is your host, Bill Wynn. Our topic this morning is Introverts Are Marketers Too with Beth Bulow, author of Introverted Entrepreneur and certified coach and speaker. Before we get back to Beth, I just want to remind folks about the two events we have coming up here in the near future. Once again, we've got a spring mixer, April 18th, at Smokeyard Barbecue and Chop Shop in La Jolla Village. This is a new, UTC. And this is a new establishment there. This should be a fabulous event, so please join us. And then, obviously, the other big thing on our calendar is Art of Marketing. You can find both of those events on the website, sdama.org. So back to Beth. Beth, are you with me?
I am.
Awesome. So when we left off, we were kind of talking about the experiences that introverts have with kind of getting out there into the business community and promoting themselves and their businesses. You mentioned the exposure that introverts have through electronic media like social media or message boards or that kind of thing, maybe even writing on the web. I would think that introverts would view those as a little bit safer than in-person interaction, but apparently those carry risk as well.
Yes, there's risk on all sides, isn't there? But you're absolutely right. I think the internet and social media has been the greatest gift to introverts since Carl Jung coined the terms and helped to clarify and identify what it meant. It does. It gives us space to process. It gives us space to respond when we're ready, as opposed to being put on the spot. Extemporaneous situations are usually not our strong suit. So social media and being able to write online, gives us time and space to prepare and get our thoughts in order. And that includes not just, what we put out proactively ourselves, but how we respond to people responding back to us. I don't have to answer that comment that somebody made right away, or I don't have to answer that question. I can let it sit for a little bit and reflect on what is the best response that I can offer. So it gives us that space that enables us to really take advantage of our own desire for reflection and processing on our own.
And yet, are those electronic media also difficult for introverts to take advantage of because of the risks of exposure that they entail?
It's true that you are opening yourself up, and with a single click, you can be sending something out to thousands, if not millions, of people, and that opens you up. And you have to decide, again, being really clear about who you are, what your message is, who you're trying to serve, and to recognize that your message is not going to resonate with everyone. And I think as soon as you start to accept that, then it's easier to take the criticism or the less than glowing feedback and say, okay, is that person part of my audience? Is there something legitimate that person is saying? Or is it, as Brene Brown, talks about, are they just throwing tomatoes from the cheap seats because it's easy for them to do. So you really have to become clear on what kind of criticism, what kind of feedback, and from whom are you open to and going to accept and validate. And what of it is just not worth giving your power to. And it does require that you start to develop a thicker skin. And I'd say my skin has gotten a lot thicker over the years. And it doesn't mean you're immune to the criticism, but it enables you to put it out there. And again, to recognize for every one criticism, you're probably going to get, 10 that say, wow, I'm so glad you wrote this, or it was such a relief to read this, or I'm so glad this came into my life. And those are the people that you're doing it for.
Yeah. So once again, the feedback loop is not only negative, right? It's also
right.
positive, and you got to create those opportunities to receive that positive feedback.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely.
And so then, as far as in-person interaction goes, networking, I think, is one of those things that's fraught with peril for people at the extreme end of the introversion scale, right? So what kind of tips do you give? I mean, entrepreneurs is one group, right? But anybody in an enterprise would obviously benefit from the same tips. So what would you tell those folks as to how to better take advantage of networking opportunities?
Yeah. Well, can I turn the tables on you for a second and ask you about your networking experience? And what have you learned about networking as an introvert over the years? Like, what has been, and I will answer your question, but I want to hear from you for a second first about what have you found to be most effective that now that you know about this definition of introversion feels like it's aligned with the strengths that we've talked about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've actually put a little bit of thought into. So fortunately, I can answer it. Right?
I know. I just put you on the spot.
Yeah, I don't have to get my thoughts together and write about it on social media. Although I have published about it, actually. I've written about it online. So, what I would tell somebody kind of who feels, who is kind of my personality type is that creating opportunities for more, for like smaller interactions, one-on-one interactions is going to be a lot more comfortable and successful for them than trying to work a big room. Right, that just walking into a room full of 100 people and walking around shaking hands may not be the most productive thing for an introvert to do. Right, so I find having one-on-one coffee with people and getting to know them a little more in depth is a good thing to do. I also AMA is a great example, right, where I go to our events and I meet people there, but I also, I got involved at the board level and have much more closer relationships with the people at that level, right? And so I know them really well. I know what their strengths are. I've been able to refer business to people. I've also had people, refer business to me, right? Bring me in and have me answer questions from potential clients. So that's my approach, is to get involved at a deeper level and get to know people better than just kind of that casual interaction at a big event. Does that answer the question?
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. You're reminding us of a few things that I think are valuable for introverts, whether it's in any social situation, whether it's networking or a party or whatever it might be. And you name one in particular that I love, which is assume a role. Like you talked about, volunteering on the leadership level, being on the board, even hosting a podcast. You have a very specific function that you have identified that plays to your strengths and that gives you a platform already, and it's a way to connect on a deeper level with people than just showing up at events and, like you said, working the room and seeing how many business cards you can compile. It's really about, again, depth over breadth and quality over quantity for introverts. And you hit on another piece. Well, actually, you hit on several pieces, but two more that I want to emphasize, which is, going into these events with set an intention. What do I want to accomplish from this event? Like I was just working with a client the other day who had gone to a conference. Actually, he was in San Diego, and he could have, because he was amongst people that would have been prospects for his business, he could have focused on pitching and trying to sell his services. And instead he said, I want to have, as many quality conversations as I can. My focus is just on, really connecting with people. And as a result, when we had our next session, he came back and he said, yeah, I've got 2 prospective, clients that I'm going to be following up on, because he chose, instead of like having that sales hat on, he just said, it's all about relationships and connecting. So I'm just going to have a few conversations and see what happens. And that is what led him to having now people that have moved further along in his sales funnel into that place where they might be primed to be a client. And then one more thing you said that I think is also part of the intention is, how can you help them solve a problem? So I will walk in and say, I'm hoping I can meet a couple people that I can provide a resource for. So I love to ask questions that have to do with, what do you need right now? Or what are you reading? Or, if they say, they share a story and I say, I just was watching a TED Talk about that. And, have you seen that? And being able to share that. So I get most excited about being able to share resources that I think are going to make somebody else's life or business better. So by going in with that kind of intention and that energy, it releases a lot of pressure, and I think enables me to be more relaxed and be more natural in the conversations with people.
Yeah, and what you just described is content marketing 101, right? Like the most successful content marketing is, what problem can I help my audience solve today? And solving a problem can be, informing, it can be educating, it can be entertaining, but it's definitely not, how do I sell my product or service today, right? It's how do I help my audience solve a problem? And that's what you just described. And so tell me what some of the more interesting or surprising things you've learned through your work in this field. Can you do that?
Yeah, well,
and we've got about 30 seconds.
Thank you. One is that I thought I was going to be talking mostly to introverts, but the people that seem to get the most from this kind of topic are the extroverts. The introverts feel affirmed and heard and seen and empowered. But with the extroverts, they have this new level of information that really it's like they're seeing their relationships fresh for the first time. They're like, oh, that's why this person does this or that, or gets tired or doesn't want to go to the party or whatever. I see the biggest transformation sometimes happening with the extroverts, which has been very satisfying and surprising.
Awesome. Okay, so when we come back, we'll kind of elaborate on that and on how to form a introvert-friendly workplace and how to elevate talented introverts on your team. You're listening to This Week in Marketing with AMA San Diego on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple, and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com, on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Nowadays, internet devices are an integral part of your home. Everyone in your family has a smartphone, tablet, or a computer. Life is easier knowing that all your devices are secured and your family can surf the internet carefree. ESET Multi-Device Security Pack does just that. One license for all your devices. With ESET, it's simple to stay protected and save money. Enjoy safer technology with ESET Multi-Device Security Pack at ESET.com. That's ESET.com.
You may have heard me brag about Progressive Medical Center and just how much they've helped me with my health. And Dr. Goli, one thing that you have helped so many people with is migraines.
Unfortunately, there are millions and millions of Americans who are suffering with migraines and headaches, and they're debilitating because it affects the quality of their life, and they cannot function properly. At Progressive, we get to the root cause because we understand that migraines could be caused by nutritional deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, believe it or not, delayed food sensitivities. And once we determine what the real reason is, we put a plan of action together together with medication that we get them off slowly, and we put them on an all-natural approach, and the results are amazing.
Incredible. I mean, there's so many people that can say they don't live their lives with migraines anymore thanks to Progressive Medical Center.
And that's what's exciting and rewarding to us as physicians, because we help our patients take control of their health, and that's why they're living well.
Why don't you get a hold of Progressive Medical Center today? Don't live in pain. Don't have migraines anymore. Just go to their website, progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
Did you know the majority of radio listeners are between the ages of 35 and 54, have a household income of more than $100,000, are classified as executives or professionals, and share the show they listen to? Become part of the Peggy Smedley Show to reach listeners looking for information on connected devices through cost-effective radio commercials or segment sponsorships. Contact us at 630-933-0844 for more information, or visit PeggySmedleyShow.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome to This Week in Marketing, brought to you by the San Diego chapter of the American Marketing Association.
So we're back for our final segment on the topic, Introverts Are Marketers Too. We're talking with Beth Bulow, author of The Introvert Entrepreneur. She is a certified business coach and speaker on this subject. Beth, before we get back to integrating and promoting introverts in your, on your team and elevating their, them in kind of your talent pipeline, I want to ask you, one of the things you talked about in Chicago was kind of this really interesting case that illustrated how much noise there is out in the world and how people are starting to market silence, right, and aloneness. Right. What was that example you gave in Chicago?
Yeah, I loved this. It's the best example of marketing that appeals to introverts, and it comes from Finland. There was a team of 100 marketing experts that gathered back into around 2010, and they were tasked with crafting a tourism message for Finland. But they had, a little bit of a quandary here because the country had a lot of assets, natural beauty, saunas and cottages that encourage self-care and contemplation. But they, as a country, they were known primarily as a quiet place, not someplace that an adventure-seeking tourist, somebody who wanted to do the pub tour and the zip lines and all of that, were likely to visit. So they looked at all of these different angles and they kept coming back to quiet. Quiet is one of our key characteristics, and maybe it's not such a bad thing. And in fact, maybe it was the thing. So the final report that was issued by that committee included several themes, and one of the most popular themes has been silence, please. So you can find a web page where it says silence, please, and then it talks about how much they value quiet and silence. And they say silence is a resource. And in the future, people will be prepared to pay for the experience of silence. And that translates over into, for the rest of us, I think about, it's not so much about how can my marketing appeal to introverts as much as it is how can I not repel introverts, right? And so one of the things that transcends, I think, the product or the service or the market that you have is that introverts are noise adverse. So think about noise and how noisy your message, how noisy your presence is. Pay attention to that. I found an interesting tidbit that says that the word noise comes from a Latin root that means either queasiness or pain. I was like, whoa, that's pretty extreme. But actually, that's kind of how I experience noise. So you might think you need to shout, especially as we talked about with social media and everything else, the environment becomes noisier. But a relative whisper can be just as, if not more effective. So, if you want to not repel introverts and therefore, attract them perhaps, find ways to turn down the volume and create white space. Simplify the message. There's a favorite quote that I have: a confused mind always says no. And that it's important that we recognize that noise is confusing. And if you're shouting at me, if you're confusing me, then I'll shut down. So it's really about, creating a lot of space so that people can absorb the message, process it, feel like they're being invited in and given an opportunity to know, like, and trust you, so that, again, that it doesn't cause me to, change the dial or click away or turn the page, that I'm actually feeling like, oh, this is space where I can linger and take in what this person has to offer.
Yeah, I love that. I love that Finland example. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Certainly appeals to me, right? I see a lot of advertising today that looks kind of like that and holds an appeal. So let's talk about now how the enterprise work environment, how introverts fit into larger teams, and what if you work in or manage an enterprise environment, how you kind of accommodate people on various points on that introversion spectrum.
Yeah, I think first it's important to recognize kind of what's the energetic and what's the energy of the culture of your organization. Does it lean extrovert? Does it lean introvert? My guess is probably for most of them, they lean extrovert because, we're taught like everyone here is a family and we work hard and we play hard together. And there's an emphasis on, that social interaction. We're a fun place to work. And so to recognize, again, it's like that might be appealing to some people, but it's also repelling to others, and particularly introverts. And if you are not in tune with the talents and the strengths that introverts will bring, then you'll inadvertently create a workspace that does not allow them an opportunity to shine or to bring their talents, or even a desire to apply in the first place, to come and work with you. So that's where I talk about, creating that introvert-friendly environment. And one of the ways you can even start doing that, besides, taking a sort of the pulse of saying, okay, do we lean more introvert or extrovert, and why? And what might we be inadvertently doing that would turn off the introverts that could and should be part of our talent pool? Take advantage of the introvert conversation being so mainstream. It used to be very much just like introverts themselves. It used to be very much on the edges. There wasn't as much information as there is now. And what information there was less about leadership and integrating people into the workplace and more derogatory, I guess. So take advantage of the literature, the articles, the posts that are out there, and just pick one and say, hey, at our next team meeting, we're going to carve out 15 minutes and talk about introversion and extroversion. And I'd love to hear from you, where do you feel like you fall on the spectrum? How does that impact how you relate to others? What do you see as the strength that you're bringing to the team or to your individual work? So to simply stimulate a conversation and just get it out there so that, I as a team member have that opportunity to say, well, I actually lean on the introvert side of the spectrum. And so just because I'm not, speaking up in a meeting doesn't mean that I'm not participating. I really like to listen and take in the information. And believe me, if I have something to share, I will say it. But I might not say it in the meeting. I might pull you aside afterwards and talk to you then. So it's opening up that conversation and giving people permission to express what their preferences are, what their strengths are, and how they work best, and getting a dialogue going. Because, information is power and awareness is even more power. So whatever you can do to foster that. And again, to leverage the fact that the introvert conversation has gone so mainstream, you're not bringing it up because you're trying to put anybody on the spot or cast judgment on anyone. It's simply, hey, I think we could have better communication and be more efficient if we learned about how we work best. And let's recognize that not everybody, one size does not fit all. Not everybody works the same way. So let's talk about that.
And so we've got about 30 seconds left here, Beth. So you just described kind of the how to accommodate introverts in your work team. Let's talk about why for just a few seconds here, right? Like, a lot of businesses might want to be that really outgoing and energetic workforce, but are there some advantages to incorporating more introverts in your team?
Yeah, if you've only got the extroverts or that energy, then you've only got half the equation. The yin yang symbol is balanced for a reason, and it has a piece of each. So you want to, if you have a more balanced workplace, then you're going to have more perspectives, more ideas, more creativity. And the other thing that introverts bring is it often can help slow down processes, and so that we don't act rashly. To kind of put the brakes on, just tap the brakes a little bit and say, hey, let's step back and think about this. And then the extroverts might be, no, we need to drive it. And so you need that tension in order to bring something that is creative and innovative and successful to the marketplace.
Okay, perfect timing, Beth. Thank you so much for joining us on This Week in Marketing. You've been great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Securing Our eCity Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on cybersecurity awareness and education. Formed in 2011, their mission is to enable every San Diegan to live, work, and play safely in the cyber world. For more information, visit securingourecity.org or call 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org, 619-630-2444. securingourecity.org.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Looking to be a successful entrepreneur? The virtual assistant industry continues to be a top choice for those looking to start their own business. The problem can be how to become a virtual assistant. Many turn to the Bible of the VA industry, the book Virtual Assistant, the series, and it's the perfect guide for office managers, executive assistants, and other administrative professionals looking to make the transition from employee to successful business owner. Go to vatheseries.com to get your copy today.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released, and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.